A badge of honor. Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But that's not how it feels today, and the stress of the job is taking its toll, taking lives through suicide and post-traumatic stress injury. A Badge of Honor podcast features the cast of the same name, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno. Sam, John, and the team offer the first responders workshops through their critical incident stress management teams and mental health liaisons to offer state-certified T-COLE credit programs that save lives. It's time to smash through the stigma. It's time to heal from your injury, and it's time to back our blue. Welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Here are your hosts, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. And we're here with John and Sam. I kind of lost my train of thought for a second, but we are powered by BBM Network. We are originally the Mad Radio Show, but because we are a 501c3 and we want to not confuse anybody, we kind of just changed name. The content, everything else remains the same. So now we are A Badge of Honor podcast. Welcome, Sam. How are you doing today?
Hey, John. It is great to be with you, man. We have had one kind of a busy week, whether it's stuff happening to officers because of the virus thing that starts with a C, and or injuries and suicides. This is the last week of suicide awareness and suicide prevention month. All September, and we've been focusing on, as we always do, the suicide rates in our first responder communities, which continue to be higher than our line of duty deaths that we're seeing, and really the tools, tactics, resources that are out there for any first responder, a first responder family. If you're connected to a first responder or veteran, these are the things that you need to know. And thank you for joining us each week, letting us be your drive home at 5 p.m.
And, if I may, if we can,
you may not.
if we can dedicate this show, because you brought up a good point, if we can, because it is Suicide Prevention Month, if we can dedicate this show to a good friend of mine, Brian Russell, Afghanistan veteran, who I've been working with I've known for a long time. And when he came back, he was battling, and we worked together, and we tried to work out some of his issues. Excuse me. For the last couple of years, and I know you were involved in a couple of things with Brian as well, getting him into different programs and different treatment centers. But at sometimes, it just doesn't work. And Brian took his life this past weekend, leaving behind a wife and a couple of kids, and we want to keep the Russell family in our prayers, because this can hit home at any time to anybody. We do these workshops all the time. We speak to veterans and first responders all the time, and sometimes a person is a little bit beyond reach, and we have to keep moving forward. And now we have to take care of the family. So this show is dedicated to Brian Russell and his family.
Absolutely. And we always wish when we lose somebody that we know that we could go back and change the way we did the approach. Or for me, it was listening to a podcast that could have been the last resort help for Brian. And it's like, well, you can't go back now. And that's why you and me and Jeff and John, it's why we do what we do, because we're out there, we're trying so hard to stay in front of it, because we know that the battle lives up here. And because it lives up here, it affects every aspect of our lives, our bodies, it affects our families. And really that's why we're about bringing resources to the families, to first responders, so that they can identify it. They have that awareness piece, and they have a safety net. And everybody's safety net looks different. It is not one size fits all when it comes to brain injury and post-traumatic stress. And our guest this evening on the podcast, she's an expert because she lived it just like we did. She is a former deputy sheriff. She has done a lot of schooling. She's got her master's degree in victimology, AKA trauma. And this is her goal as well. She's a yoga instructor and a wellness coach because she clearly gets it's not just about treating up here, it's about treating the entire person because we are all affected. So without further ado, we want to bring on A.K. Dozanti from Lifesaver Wellness. A.K., thank you for being with us tonight.
Hi.
Well, thank you for having me. And John, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry to learn about your friend Brian. I'm really glad that this episode is dedicated to him, but I'm glad to be here. So thank you guys for having me.
You know, when me and Sam were talking and went beforehand with Brian, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you have the letters behind your name, the MA and stuff. We don't have any of those. But really, just to solidify, you know, Brian was had an addiction issue, and he was suffering post-traumatic stress. Two things that you cannot really treat at the same time. We have to clear the addiction issue before we can focus on any mental trauma. And I think we kind of go the wrong way sometimes, where we try to treat the trauma before we try to treat the drug addiction or the alcoholism. And like you said, we have to clear our minds. We have to really cleanse our bodies before we can ever get mentally healthy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Why is that such a key piece for people to understand? Because sometimes it is like people want to be helpful. Oh, you should do this program. You should do this program. Well, if you've got that addiction that's kind of stacked on top of your trauma, it's like trying to clear cobwebs that don't want to get unstuck.
Well, you've got to be able to see everything very clearly, for one, and you have to make sure that your nervous system and your body feels safe enough to even get you out of that fight or flight mode. So to get you out of that like reptilian, your lizard brain, to be able to kind of recall some of those memories, to go back and reframe them, or file them away where they're supposed to be, if you will, or have, clear cognitive thoughts about certain events in your life. You have to be able to have a little bit of a clear mind to let that happen, and your body has to be accepting of letting your mind go there, if that makes sense.
No,
perfect sense. And you know all this because you were a former deputy sheriff, so you've been through your own stuff. How'd you decide on your career choice and then starting Lifesaver Wellness?
Yeah, so I actually got into law enforcement when I was 19 years old. I started as an auxiliary doing some undercover online investigations. I feel like it chose me because I did some shadowing as an auxiliary, and I was like, this is my stuff. And so if I want to do this, then I have to do X, Y, and Z, right? And so I went through the academy when I was 20. 2 days after I got my degree, I went and started with the sheriff's office. I was already working with them as a special deputy, but then did that for a few years. I was high speed, low drag on afternoon shift, single man units. We were busy, and I loved every minute of it. And I joined the Marine Patrol unit, and what I didn't realize was I was going really fast because I was running from some tough truths in my life, some things that I had dealt with that I didn't realize or recognize as trauma because nobody trains us on that. And so I came into the job all dysregulated, and then it compounded. And so in 2015, I went from being Officer of the Year in February, and by September, I was like crispy burned out. I had adrenal fatigue, PTSI, depression. I didn't have a choice. I could have probably kept going, but I knew at that point I was a liability to them and myself. And I just wanted to get healthy. So I became a criminal court victim advocate. During that few years that I was an advocate, I went back and got my master's degree. I got back into yoga and became an instructor, and just dove into all kinds of different modalities of healing. And really, it was for my own well-being. And when I left that advocacy position in 2020, I took some time off to be with my little boy. And then I'm like, my soul is saying, like, I got to do something here. And I couldn't figure out how all these disjointed parts would come together. And then one day it just hit me. Duh. It might not be the most well-received yoga and law enforcement, but there's other people, trying it. So let's give it a go. And then the whole coaching piece came along just naturally, because I've my whole life been able to kind of help people navigate situations. And so a little over a year ago, I created Lifesaver Wellness, and
Nice.
it has just,
Nice.
spider webbed out, and just become its own thing. So yeah.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, if you guys are just tuning in, we are with A.K. Dozanti. She is the founder of Lifesaver Wellness. We got to take our first break. We will be right back with you soon.
Move freely, America, without medical restrictions or penalty. Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Move freely, America, with one voice, without fear of retribution, achieving a common goal, medical freedom. We the people make our voices heard by connecting with state legislators and engaging a constitutionally compliant medical Bill of Rights for all citizens. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America. My voice.
And my voice.
And together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Hey, welcome back to Badge of Honor podcast with John, Sam, and A.K.
All right. Yeah. So, John, can I ask a key question? Because A.K. touched on what physically was occurring for her when she realized she went into the burnout. If you guys want to see that, it's a great picture of you receiving Officer of the Year. That's with your chief, right, on your website?
The sheriff, yeah.
The sheriff, sorry. Yeah, and you mentioned adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. If you are listening and you are in the first responder role, it is critical that you understand this piece, because it is reversible. But once it starts, if you don't do something to reverse it, it just perpetuates a burnout that is a hole. If you ignore it, that is sometimes your body, well, it can be permanently damaged. So A.K., talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I had no idea that, trauma and stress and mental health issues could affect your body. And I didn't even realize what was happening very, I guess, late for the common, what's the word I'm looking for? The common practice of like having to take your tonsils out. I had to have my tonsils out at like 26 years old because I had recurring infections. I had shingles before I was 30. Things like that. I wasn't making the connection that those things were because my mind was under so much stress, and it was putting my body under this kind of stress. So when you have these adrenaline dumps and this cortisol pumping through your body all the time, and you're not giving yourself any recovery, it really works on your adrenal glands. And for those that don't know, they sit right on top of your kidneys. It's a pretty important function. And you really need to be able to regulate those systems in your body. I took about a month off in between my law enforcement position and my advocacy position. I slept about 18 hours a day, every single day.
Wow.
And it took probably 6 months or so to feel like I had any sort of energy again. because when I let my body kind of come back and feel safe, it was like, oh, we're going to rest now. And then I turned into Rumpelstiltskin. So
Well, let me ask you something. With your background now, when did you go to the academy?
2008.
2008. All right. So I went to the academy in 1990. Sam, when did you start your academy?
99.
99. So up to 2008. I don't know how your instructors were, but my instructors probably had like maybe an associate's degree in business, and they were allowed to go teach law enforcement schools. Nobody really had a psyche background or a mental health background, and it was never taught in our academy. I don't know about yours in 2008, but do you think that at the very least, teaching some of these stressors that could occur later on down the line, and teaching people in the academy about yoga and different resources, you think that would prevent maybe our future officers from becoming sick, burned out, and they'll learn how to manage?
100%. And I think that's how we start to really shift the stigma long term, because once you're in and you're with people who have been in the job for 25, 30 years, who might still have that idea or that culture of, we just suck it up and keep moving, then that's going to rub off. And so if we can catch them early, absolutely. And when I went through the academy, it was, hey, you're going to see some stuff. You're going to have to learn how to compartmentalize. Cool. Yeah, that's going to save your life. It's not a long-term plan. It is not sustainable. It will help you on a shift. It'll help you get through the week, but it is not sustainable because you don't have a compartment in your brain that just locks it away.
Right, but they tell you to do that. They tell you to do that, right? But they don't teach you how to do that.
Right.
Right, because compartmentalizing doesn't mean you put it there and you leave it there.
I would have said that word, but I can't. I can't say
compartmentalize.
I can't say that word. One of those words I can't say. So I'm just saying.
A lot of syllables.
Compartment. But
your locker in your head.
And I'm sure every academy tells you the same thing, but they do not teach us how to do that. And until later on, until these podcasts and to these wellness programs, years later, after the damage is done, that's when we go, we get that aha thing in front of us going, man, I wish I would have known this 20 years ago. I wish I would have known this 15 years ago, and I would have prepared myself.
Right.
It's really, sorry to interrupt. It's really those that, get to the end of their career, whatever their career looks like, when you have that time now that you're not going to the next call and the next call and the next call, I'll say staying in front of it, where you're, those voices start showing up, the visions start showing up because you're watching whatever on TV or a movie, and then you have that experience and you're like, what the bleep was that? Like a call from 15 years ago comes forefront, the locker opens or your filing cabinet opens or that compartment opens, and here it is front and center. You're never taught how to deal with it. And then that is running constantly. You've got the cortisol, you've got the adrenaline, you haven't taken care of yourself because you've never been taught. The cycle starts, or I should say continues, from what AK has said, with the constant cortisol rushing. And that's where, John, you and I and AK, the folks that you talk to, is like, wait a second, I've done a whole career. None of this stuff that's going inside my head ever came up while I was working. Why in the heck is it happening now? And AK, can you answer that question? Because it's so important, and it goes exactly to why we need to step in front of it and start talking about it at the academy.
Well, we get really good at avoiding things. We learn how to just be high speed, low drag. We try to compartmentalize, right? We try to put it, leave work at work, leave home at home. great. And eventually that dam breaks, is what happens. And it's either, it's usually not the big critical incident calls. It's something that triggers a big incident call that you never dealt with, or it's something that just was the last straw that broke the camel's back. So it's really hard to predict, when that moment's going to come, where you're like, all of a sudden you're just sitting at home watching the game and a commercial comes on, and the next thing you know, you're in tears and you're like, what just happened?
Right.
And it's because your system is so dysregulated and you've been avoiding it for so long. Eventually the truth is going to smack you in the face.
Ouch. With the truth smacking you in the face, I'm just looking, we got to take another quick break for another one of our sponsors, and we're going to talk about getting smacked in the face. We'll be back in a second.
Every business needs a dependable junk hauling service to keep their property clutter-free. Call 630-470-8307. Junk Luggers offers a wide range of eco-friendly residential and commercial junk removal services to help your business run smoothly and efficiently. Book your no-obligation estimate with Junk Luggers today. Banks and credit unions have unique junk, and Junk Luggers knows the business. Professional organizers, senior living communities, we're helping everyone clean up and start new. If you're redecorating, remodeling, or getting ready for new tenants, Junk Luggers will donate, recycle, and do our best to keep it out of the landfill. Call 630-470-8307. That's 630-470-8307 today.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with AK and Sam. We were talking about being smacked in the face.
Yes, we are. It is at that moment, AK, you have some really cool specific training, being a yoga practitioner and an instructor, as well as a wellness coach. If those folks that are listening, our audience, they know I'm a huge proponent of moving. You've got to stop and put that fight or flight in its place. You've got to engage your prefrontal cortex. You've got to get off the couch, get out of the bathroom, wherever you're getting smacked in the face, and you got to start moving. Can you talk about how it works in the brain and why it's so important?
Well, you have to be able to shift your energy. And a lot of times when you're in that fight or flight, you're not grounded in your body and you're not grounded in reality. And so the trauma and the chronic stress really, it gets encoded. We experience it with all five senses. So it gets encoded in our body. And excuse me, we have to really be able to process it through our body as well as our minds. So if you're having one of those moments where you feel like you're getting smacked in the face, or something comes flooding back into your mind, you have to be able to shift your energy. You have to be able to get out of that, that video reel or whatever that is, and back down into your body and work with your nervous system. So if your nervous system is dysregulated, you're going to tend toward, dysregulated thoughts, intrusive thoughts, making, poor decisions and not having good, clear cognition. And so if you can get your nervous system to regulate, then, it really clears your mind and creates a lot of space for good, healthy cognition and communication.
Well, when you talk about how hard that is to regulate, right? Let's look at something over 20 years. And I kind of, when we do our workshops, I touch on this and I relate that dump and that fight or flight syndrome that we get so conditioned to as back or joint pain, right? We learn to live with it and it becomes actually the norm. And we do not know what it feels like to live in a normal brain again, because we've been so conditioned to live in an out of sort brain and our body's been unregulated. So just like if you have bad back pain for 10 years, then all of a sudden you go to a chiropractor and get adjusted. You're like, wow, is this this how I'm supposed to really feel? This feels great, you know? But I think we get so conditioned that we don't know what it's really like to be back in our own brains again.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think in some people maybe grew up in a household that created that dysregulation, and so some people don't even know what that feels like. And what it is feeling unsafe in your own body. You're constantly looking for a threat, you're scanning for a threat, which might make you a really great cop. But in your real life, as a dad or a mom, or a son or daughter, it's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your ability to connect to people. It's going to affect your ability to connect with yourself. And that's where we lose our connection with ourselves. We lose our sense of joy and our ability to be in the moment. And that is so important, because that's where we live. We live in the moment. And that's a lot of what I teach and I deal with, is because so often we're worried about either the things in the past that are just chasing us because we haven't dealt with it, or the things that we expect or anticipate. And being able to regulate gets you in the present.
Now we've thrown around this word, dysregulation, and it is so key.
Yes.
To excuse me, the way that we operate. John and I spent a lot of time on your website. I'm going to put your website up here, right here. For those of you who are listening on your favorite podcast app, it's lifesaverwellness.com. That's lifesaverwellness.com. You have courses that are, beat the burnout. Love it, because you do want to not get to that point where you are burnt out. And so many first responders find themselves either headed in that place or already burnt out. So we've got to deal with the stress. We've got to deal with the compounded trauma. You've got courses that for departments. You've got things and systems. It's the combat system, which I really want to dive into, because it is so smart, and it is so beautiful, and it's so poignant, and it's a connection point that everybody can understand. And it really is the key to either solving your burnout if you're in it, or avoiding it with those key pieces of awareness. Let's go through it. See.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. So the combat method. So what I realized as I was, and this kind of came about organically, but I really took all the information. I was listening to people. I was getting on TikTok lives just to get feedback from people. And what I realized was the two biggest complaints from first responders was that they felt disconnected and they felt overwhelmed. So number one, connect. We got to connect the mind and body. We have to be able to get grounded and start to feel safe in our own body. And then we can start approaching reality, our truth, right? Next step is to offload. And that's a very basic, small description, but because that part alone is 2 weeks. Next step is to offload, also 2 weeks. Learn how to take kind of an audit of, what am I holding on to? What is necessary, and what can I let go of? It kind of learn how to extract the wisdom out of certain situations and let the rest of it go. And then offloading the extra pressure, the extra energy that we hold on to physically. And then this is where my mega nerd status comes out, because Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that once we start to feel better, our motivation goes down, right? So you connect, you offload, you're not done. There's a whole lot more work to do. So we mobilize. We start putting different systems into action, create sustainable systems, because that M used to be motivate. Motivation is not sustainable. It comes and it goes. So we want to mobilize. We want to put sustainable systems in place that are just habits and practices and things that we do on the daily. Next step is to build. You build who you want to become. We take on the identity of our uniform. That is who we are So we think, right? And that is to our own detriment, because that's not who you are as a human being. And, you know, you as a police officer, as a firefighter, as, you know, the uniform can't be happy. It's you. You're the one that you're trying to make happy. So you really get to build your own SOP, or standard operating procedures. Figure out who you are. What are your parameters? What are your boundaries? What do you love? What do you not like? And then moving into aligning that with your current life, and practicing and finding the blind spots and figuring out, what are the things I haven't taken into account? What have I not considered? And then the last step, which I think is the most important, is to transition into self-coaching, because I don't want to, like, to me, it's not a flex if I'm coaching you for 3 years. That means we've created a codependency, right? I want to give you all the tools to do it on your own. So the transitioning piece is being able to regulate yourself and hold yourself accountable, but in a really non-judgmental way. Give yourself some grace, but still kind of hold your feet to the fire. So that's the, like, express version of the combat method.
No, that it is beautiful, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. We got to take another quick break to hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
Interested in starting a podcast or TV show? Worried about what you'll say and how to keep it engaging? Think you'd like to be a guest on podcast, radio, or TV shows? Hi, I'm Susan Hamilton, owner and founder of OBBM Network, and I would like to invite you to an OBBM media training to get the tools you need for a relaxed and polished performance you'll be proud to share. Our specialized training techniques include role play, voice training, and everything you need to deliver a confident, clear, and engaging interaction. Go to offbeatbusiness.com. Go to the calendar and register for a training that's convenient for you. Dates available now, 214-714-0495.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast, talking with AK, and we have Sam here with us. And, you know, I just want to jump into what you just said about this whole, this STEP program, kind of, where we identify as the roles we took on as police officers, firefighters, paramedics, whatever those roles are. Now, it brings me back to, like, this song right behind me, the 9/11, right? So many officers and so many firefighters who were off duty at the time, and out of the city. They were home playing golf. We're getting ready for kids' birthday parties, whatever. But you know what? They heard this happen. They dropped everything they were doing, and they ran right to work, right? You don't see an accountant go, oh, there's an accounting emergency. I got to get to work on a Saturday. You don't see that, right? So it's got to be something that we're inbred with, right? And what happens is, especially with officers, you are told you're on the job 24 hours a day. You are a cop 24 hours a day, even if you're off duty, because you're held to a higher standard within that. But they're putting all this pressure on our first responders and especially our officers, where they're telling them what they can do on and off duty, how to act, how to be, you know, you have to take action, you have to do this, but they're not giving them the tools to decompress, to separate themselves from the uniform, to be a basic human being, to really find themselves. Do you find that? Am I hitting that?
Spot on. Because so Bessel van der Kolk in the book The Body Keeps the Score, that's like the Bible of trauma. He says that the essence of trauma is the loss of identity. And so the second you put that uniform on and you're assuming another identity, you're putting yourself behind the curtain. And there's so much to be said for, you know, the camaraderie and the brotherhood and all of those things, but it doesn't give you any freedom to be you. And that's where we lose ourselves. And I think so many of us, and I think this was probably the case for myself, if you come into the job looking for a sense of identity, you're going to find it. But that's probably because you've already lost your identity somewhere along the way. And so you're really just doubling down. And so, yeah, you absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, and when you lose your identity, and we were talking pre-show about coping mechanisms, you know, listen, 45 years, I never spoke a word of it. I was sexually abused as a child, right? And I think that definitely did something. So my body's been in fight or flight since I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. Never knew it, and it becomes the norm. So maybe I did lose my identity somewhere along the line. Forgot who I was, and becoming a cop. Remember, you said maybe that's the reason you became a cop, to take on a different identity, and it's hard to break that. It's hard to break that because, especially as a cop, you know, you're not neighbor Joe. You're neighbor Joe the cop.
Yep.
Right. You take that on. If something happens in your neighborhood, they go to Joe the cop. You know, so you never get that chance to actually be who you are as a human being.
Well, right. And so not only does that become the case, that makes us feel good, right? I'm the go-to guy. And so you're getting like your little internal slot machine hit. It's your bells and whistles are going ding, 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 ding. You're like, this is awesome.
Yeah, the ego dopamine hit.
Yep.
Exactly. Precisely. But that lasts about 30 seconds. And then it's in our basic nature. I mean, you look at the way kids are. Really, as humans, all we want is to be seen and heard and loved. And
Right.
if they're coming to you because you're the cop, you're going, okay, they're coming to me for my uniform. I, Joe, am not being truly seen and heard. And so that's where we have like this disconnect. And a lot of times you're like, okay, yeah, that feels safer because they're addressing me as the cop, because I'm not ready to show them real me, because I feel like I'm a little screwed up in the head, right? And so we hide behind that identity because that feels safer, but there's no freedom in that. So,
Right.
yeah.
What's the solution? How do we fix something like that?
You get real.
Huh?
You get really real with yourself.
Okay.
That's
probably the hardest thing. So how do we do that?
Yeah, it's that vulnerability word, right?
Right.
Yes.
How do we do that?
Yeah.
Well, trauma needs a witness. You have to be able to work through some of your hardest things. And John, the way you talked about, your abuse, the first time you ever talked about it, did it almost literally choke in your throat? Like, did you almost?
Well, I'll let you know, because you don't know a lot about me.
Yeah.
But
We don't have enough time for that.
Yeah. I'll just let you know. The first time I let it out, because I didn't let it out for 45 years, I had 6 canisters of tear gas shot through my windows and a SWAT team out in front with a tank on my lawn. We'll discuss that off duty.
Yeah.
But,
Got it.
but that because Pandora's box opened.
Yeah.
So that was a bottom trauma that released everything from childhood. It released all my trauma from the PD and EMS and fire, and it was just. And I spiraled, and that's where I feel a lot of people have that, because my coping mechanisms were broke. I didn't know. I still have an argument with my wife, and I'm either in a fight mode or a flee mode. I can't discuss rationally at times. I lose it, but I'm trying.
Well, and that, I mean, and we'll get back to the original, but that makes sense, because if your body is going, okay, I've felt this feeling before. It's sending you into high alert, and you're in your lizard brain, and your words are not made in your lizard brain. So the fact that you then can't come up with words is totally normal and to be expected. But being able to work through that stuff, you have to be able to talk about it. But in order to talk about it and create words, we have to make sure our body feels safe. Right. And so a lot of that is just getting grounded, breathing techniques, meditation, yoga, just getting out into nature, moving your body, just literally processing it through your body. Honestly, sometimes I even have my clients do, I call it scream therapy. But just letting it out, letting yourself be heard, giving yourself the permission to just let it out can be so impactful. Of course, you want to have like some control and maybe warn the people in the house, but you have to be able to work it out of your body, let your body feel safe before you can even put words to it. But then once it's out of the bag, it's like, wow, I'm still alive. I'm here.
And are these the things that somebody would learn being part of your program? You started to say how each core component and the time frame. If I am a first responder and I'm landing on lifesaverwellness.com, I want to learn more about this combat program. It sounds like it's something for me because it makes perfect sense. I'm already like a teetering on the burnout, so I got to take care of me. What does the whole program like? What's my time commitment to you, and how does that work?
9 weeks.
Well, I guess the time commitment's really to me.
Right.
The gift
Yeah.
is to me.
Absolutely.
What's the time commitment that we work together?
Yeah. So once you actually start, it's an initial 9 weeks, and there's options to continue beyond that if you want. But right now I have one-on-one coaching, and that's the 9-week program. I'm very patiently waiting for Apple to approve my app. And then there's going to be a self-paced option to be able to do it right on your phone, or you can get it on the desktop, and it's all the same curriculum. You just wouldn't have me personally guiding you through it. And I do make it clear that I'm not a mental health clinician. So I will be vetting people out on the self-paced program, because I want to make sure that if you need that next level of care, I want to help you find that. I want to help you, hook you up with some resources in your area. Because if you are in the midst of suicidal ideation, this is not going to be enough for you. And so I want to make sure that I'm being really ethical and responsible with that. So, so what I do is I have these little 15-minute knock and talks. And it's just a quick little Zoom call to kind of get a feel for where you're at and what option might fit you the best. But when the app comes out, it's going to have all kinds of free stuff, a little mini course on how to charge the storm within, and some SOS options. So you'll be able to just pull up the app and immediately get a video of me guiding you through a breathing technique or a grounding technique. So it's going to be really amazing once it actually drops.
That is fantastic. You'll have to let us know when it drops so we can put it out there. Guys, we have been listening to A.K. Dozanti, A.K. from Lifesaver Wellness. Again, go to lifesaverwellness.com and really check out her program. It can be a lifesaver. That's why she named the website that. So we got to hear from our last sponsor. We'll be right back.
What is the role of American government anyway? Is the role of government to decide where I can go and where I can't? Is the role of government to work tirelessly to destroy vital infrastructure that keeps goods and services from my customers? Is the role of government to choose who can drive, fly, or ride according to mandated stipulations that threaten my body, health, mind, and conscience? Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Your voice, your feet, your vote, not just at the ballot box, but training to be a poll watcher, precinct chair, judge, or early ballot counter, so you are doing all you can to protect the fairly counted American vote. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America, because my voice
and my voice,
together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast. We are with A.K. Discussing wellness and how to get mentally healthy. Thank you, A.K. And, when we're talking about, an hour podcast is probably not long enough to really deep dive into all of this. But I do like to ask a lot. We've had a lot of professionals on our show, and I want to get your input on where do you think we stand on the mental health issues in our first responder field? Are we just scratching the surface? Are we 5% in, or how much more road do we have to go? What do you? I mean, are we even doing it right?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Well, I did want to make one correction. So I actually named Lifesaver Wellness because it's wellness for the lifesavers, the ones out there saving lives. I am not the lifesaver.
Oh,
It's wellness for them. To me, it's the other way sounds so vain, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that.
it goes both ways. Sometimes the lifesavers need lifesavers. So
Yes,
this is true.
You are one of the lifesavers.
That's why they have the Lifesaver multi-pack with the different colors in it.
Yeah,
that is true. I love that.
Not just one color.
So I think to answer your question, if I had to like throw a percentage out, I'd say we're like 20% in. And it's because we're not implementing it in or early on in the academies. I think there are some states that are going to start doing that very soon. But that's also really hard because when you're in the academy, you don't know what you don't know. And so like, how do you fix something before it even happens?
Well, that's why, like, in our workshops, we've been advocates on saying this should start at the moment you fill out the application to be law enforcement. Yeah. When you go to the applicant investigation division, you should sit down. Your wife, your kids should be there with you, and they should turn around and say, this is what your husband's going to turn or wife's going to turn into. This is what we're going to expect of them. Are you prepared for this? And we will guide the family through the career as well. And that's where we lose a lot, because a lot of people go into these civil service jobs as fire and police, not knowing what to expect down the road until it's too late, right? They've already been they've already been beaten with or slapped in the face with the suck it up attitude, depending on what department they're in. So we have to train them prior to even getting into the academy.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I love the idea of having the families involved too. Because I lived 2 hours away from my family, and I lived alone. I was 21 years old, like taking on all of this crazy stuff, living by myself for years. And so it would have helped to have like my mom or dad or somebody, like kind of understanding that there's going to be some major shifts. It might show up in some personality things. It might show up in behaviors, and what to recognize and how, what to do if you do recognize it.
Right.
Do you have your sergeant's number? Do you have, any kind of ties to the agency at all? So I love that. But I think really we've dipped our foot in, right? Like a little more than the toe. We were kind of standing in it. But there's so much more. There's so much more that we can do with peer support and post-critical incident seminars and, just the awareness and getting people on board with talking about it and smashing the stigma. I mean, I hate to be cliche, but really being able to wipe that stigma out of here is going to be key. And I think we're headed in that direction, and we're moving along, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah. And I think that, for services like you offer, John and I are big proponents of, hey, sometimes depending on the climate of your office, the department that you work for, you might seek and let outside of your department be the resources, be your safety net, so that you'll have the time for choir practice, and maybe that's okay. And maybe it's not. Like I said, every department is different, but at least you've got a place to go, a safe place to land where you're able to let down your guard, primal scream if you need to, get it out, be in a safe place, even if it's online, a Zoom. You're processing the trauma through and you've got critical pieces of healing and practices that you do, because it's not just a matter of releasing it. You've got to support yourself too. And, you know, if you've been through this stuff like AK, you have me, John, Jeff, John, lots of first responders out there. You've got to build yourself a success recipe. That's what I call it. And it's something that you work on. It's some things you identify that you enjoy doing that support your mental health, that support your body, that support you in healthy ways. So you're not drinking a bottle of whatever a night. Yeah. Hello there. I speak from experience. So with that, AK, how do first responders and family members of first responders and veterans who are identifying with this is like, wow, this is great information. How do they reach you? What's the best way?
Easiest way is just going to the website. I have everything linked up there. My social pages are up there, and I drop some cool information on there sometimes, just different tips and tricks, things to recognize. And then, you know, you can even book the knock and talk right from the website. So that's
like
probably
that,
the easiest way.
That's fantastic.
That's exactly what it is. Just
I love it.
seeing if we can vibe, seeing if I can help you out. And yeah.
Awesome. And again, for those of you guys that are listening on your favorite podcasting app, that website is lifesaverwellness.com. For those of you watching, you see it's right up here on the screen. AK, thank you so much for your time, for your dedication to first responders, those who serve every day. Thank you for sticking with it and understanding, once you dealt with your tough stuff, that there is a space that you're like, I got to give back, because, you know, that's what I think a calling for all of us is. We cannot keep what we learn to ourselves because we're losing too many folks. So really appreciate your time. And again, folks, visit lifesaverwellness.com to get in touch with AK and do that knock and talk for sure.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
And you bet. We will be in touch. Thanks so much.
Thanks, AK.
Bye.
Man.
Wow, this just phenomenal information. Again, really for me and John, for you to go into her website, that combat system that she has, it makes sense completely. Critical pieces to keep you well, body and mind, because that's what it takes. It takes your whole being to beat, you know, this mental health roller coaster, if you will. And you know what? There are so many. We want to thank all of our sponsors, OBBM Media. We are out there, folks. If you are listening to a Badge of Honor podcast on your favorite podcasting app, thank you for tuning in. We are here on YouTube as well as on Facebook. We will be launching on Rumble too. Big shout out to our newest podcast, home, if you will, Podvine. If you haven't heard of Podvine, your favorite podcasts are on Podvine. Check it out. And we've got a lot of things that are upcoming. So every month, the 22nd of every month, you need to come out and walk with us, walkthebridge.org. We are shining a light on first responder and veteran suicide. Okay, bringing the awareness piece. It's a time for you to decompress, to be with your first responder and veteran family. Talk about the tough stuff. Walk, run, however you want to do it. Walkthebridge.org for more information to see. We are international now, how this is playing out and how you can participate. Another great way to participate in keeping yourself well, understanding post-traumatic stress, is visit badgeofhonor.com. You can check out, we have an upcoming workshop in the Garland Police Department on Friday, November 11th. Happens to be Veterans Day, so a really easy date to remember. And you can go there and register. Registration is open. Grab your spot. We've got you taken care of, breakfast, lunch, everything you need for the course. We got goodies that we're giving away, stuff to write with, you name it. It's a powerful 8 hours. Again, you receive T-Cole credits for that. We take a deep dive with you. Before that, I almost forgot, John, we can't forget IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police. Thank you, IACP, for doing your big conference here in Dallas. And that is October. It's mid-October. Sorry, folks. I can't remember everything. That's why I have a calendar.
It'll be on our website. It'll be on our website.
Yeah, you can go to our website, find out. Just click on the events page. It's the 14th through the 18th of October. Check it out. We will have a vendor booth set up there. Come on by and see us there. We will also be out at the Collin County Mental Health Symposium that we just got registered for, which is after our workshop in November. Again, abadgeofhonor.com, click on events. You'll see everything that's going on. Oh, we're also hosting a Heroes on the Water event. If you like kayak fishing and you are a first responder, this is exclusive. 10 boats. That's it. 10 boats available. I'm going to put a Badge of Honor back up on the screen. You want to go to abadgeofhonor.com. You want to register for the event that we are co-hosting with Heroes on the Water. Grab one of those 10 boats. Only 10. We're keeping it small for a reason. And you can visit heroesonthewater.org for more as well. John,
announcements. Once again, you made all the announcements. I just wanted to let everybody know, everybody we bring on this show, be it first responders or resources, me and Sam fully vet everybody. These are not fly-by-night resources. These are vetted agencies that have proven skills and proven effects. So, we don't bring any of these fly-by-night resources to you. These are fully vetted resources that we're giving to you for your mental health. So I just want to make that clear that these are vetted resources.
Legit. We'll call them legit.
There are a lot of false organizations out there. There are a lot of wannabes, but the people that go on the show get fully vetted by myself and Sam. So we make sure we bring the positive to you, the legit ones to you. So
absolutely.
Until then, man, we hear you. Thank you, Sam. And if AK's still here, thank you, AK, for doing what you're doing in Ohio. Hope to get out there and see you guys. And you're not alone.
Right here, folks. Thank you, everybody, to all our veterans and first responders. You are absolutely not alone. Tune in next week. We got another great guest, 5 p.m. Central. Until then, this is John and Sam. We are out.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.